How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Riley's Red Zone, and in today's video I will be giving my Week 15 NFL picks, and as always the last few weeks we do have a guest picker once again. Let's quick recap what happened last week before jumping into this week's slate. Last week was not the strongest week for both me and last week's guest picker Charlie. I went 7-8. Charlie went 5-10. There just were a lot of games down the stretch that didn't quite go the way that we picked, and so not my best week. That does put me to 126-82 overall. I did, though, hit 2 of my 3 upset picks last week, so now I'm 22 for 47 on those. Got a couple this week, hoping to get there as well. But this week, we have another person who is looking to join this leaderboard and hopefully get towards this direction up top. We're bringing in this week Braden. Braden has given me his selections for this week's picks, and I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the game as well as who he chose. We have some, a couple disagreements on some games, so there will be some content to talk about. So let's get into this week's slate of games. Starting with the Thursday night, we have the Chargers and the Raiders. Two teams that are both hovering at that 5-win mark, and kind of on the way outside now, it feels like, of the AFC playoff race, but yet you can't technically count them out. But kind of just a lot of, I'd say, frustration has gone on for both these teams this season. The Chargers now, of course, lose Justin Herbert, their quarterback, for the rest of the season, which is a heartbreaker. He was something that was keeping this team together. He hasn't been always perfect, but he at least was, keeping them going. But now you lose that. And the Raiders don't know who they're going to start at quarterback. It's been Aiden O'Connell the last few weeks after they gave Antonio Pierce the head coaching position. But now I don't even know who they're looking at. Garoppolo, they're looking at Brian Hoyer. It's not even clear right now on who's going to start the game. So a lot of mystery going on in this game for sure. That being said, the Raiders are favored by 3, which I think is about probably what I expected there. They are... I think just they've been dealing with, their quarterback situation a little bit longer no matter what compared to having to adjust the way the Chargers are. So I'm going to take the Raiders at home. So is Braden in this matchup. Home team, and I think that really is an advantage there for them. They just have been, both teams kind of banged up right now, but I think the Raiders have had more experience with their current roster in the form it's in. This next game, though, the Vikings and the Bengals, got two teams who are also in their respective playoff races. The Bengals look as though they might still be pretty capable of going far in the playoffs with Jake Browning at quarterback after some good performances as of late. Meanwhile, the Vikings quarterback situation takes the opposite direction. They are now benching Dobbs for Nick Mullins. And Mullins has started a number of games in this league, but I think I see him more as that game manager type. But for what the Vikings are, that might be all you need. They obviously hold the Raiders to 0 points last week. So they can win these 3-0 ball games, and so they have a phenomenal defense. I'm thinking in this matchup, though, Jake Browning and that offense with Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon is going to be a little bit too much. And even if they hold them to, let's say, 17, I don't know if the Vikings offense is going to be able to get that 17 points. So I'm going to take the Bengals. They're favored by 2.5 to 3 points. So is Braden in this matchup. He's also going with the Bengals there. Just the Vikings seem to be kind of trending in not the best direction right now, even though they're in the playoff race. I'll see if they still make that. The Colts and the Steelers, another battle of backup quarterbacks, and the list of backup quarterbacks just keeps growing. And here we have another one where we're going to have Trubisky versus Gardner Minshew. And so I can't believe the Steelers didn't get a win against the Patriots. I mean, I thought that was going to be a winnable. They lost against two-win teams in back-to-back games. Really shocking. Their defense is still, I think, pretty solid, but they can't put points on the board, and I'm not sure if that's going to change this week. Now, the Colts haven't been exactly unstoppable. They are running with a lot of backups, but they are still winning ball games, and so I expect this to be a pretty close one. It could go either way because both are similar in the fact that they have the backup quarterback. I don't think this is going to be a real high scoring. I could see maybe a 20-17 type of game here. I'm going to go with the Colts, as I think that Minshew and that offense will be able to score more points than the Steelers' offense, even though the Steelers' defense is great. And Braden believes the Steelers' defense is great because he's going with the Steelers in this matchup. So he's taking the underdog. That should be a great game. That was definitely one that I think will be a really, really close matchup this week. This next one intrigues me quite a bit. We have the Lions and the Broncos. Two teams seem to go in opposite directions, but the Lions have still had a really strong season. It seems as though now 4-point favorites are the Lions. I thought it would maybe only be 3 at the most. Surprised even Denver isn't perhaps closer in the spread, as Denver is playing really, really well. I'm glad I called it out last week. I was like, this Broncos spread with the Chargers does not look right. I'm shocked the Broncos are not favorites. Broncos win by a margin. That was luckily, I made that bold statement and it did come out true. This week, as stated, Broncos have been playing really, really well. The Lions have been slipping up as of late. But for me, the home field advantage is going to play a part in this one, which is why I'm taking the Lions. I think this is their get-back game. They win a game maybe I wouldn't have expected them to here. That's my prediction on what is happening there. Braden is going with the Broncos, who once again, as stated, have been playing really, really well right now. They have maybe playing like a top 6 team over the last month. You could make that case, I think, easily, but I think this is an opportunity for Lions to bounce it back. This next one, this is a bold take here, but the Falcons and the Panthers. The Falcons can't get the win against the Bucks. They seem to always they can't be consistent. They flip-flop back and forth. It feels like when I've picked them before, they lose, and when I don't, sometimes they win. I feel like they have been a team that's been difficult to kind of predict this year, and it's all about how they get that offense going. And the Panthers, of course, have just not been good at football this season. But I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I think at home, the Falcons team has not shown that they can really take care of business in any game, even against the Jets with Tim Boyle. They were holding on by 5 points by the end there. They haven't really shown that they can close the door on any team. And so I'm going to make the bold choice here of taking the Panthers at home. They have only won that game against the Texans, but I think that they can get another one this week. Bryce Young puts up a performance. It is only because they are at home, and I was looking at it, and I only had maybe one other upset pick, and I know that at least a couple are going to happen, and there's been a few times this season where there was a division game that I thought was a trap game, and I didn't quite pull the trigger, specifically the Packers and Lions, the Bears and Lions, and a couple others. I'm going to take the Panthers here. It doesn't really make logistical sense, but I just get that type of feeling that this could be a chance for it. Braden's going to go with the Falcons, which logically makes sense. They have shown to be a better team. I just am hesitant on the Falcons as a team overall. So I'm going to take the Panthers, even though they haven't shown much. I think at home, this could be a prime opportunity for them to bounce back. Now, the Bears and the Browns. The Bears are sneaky. The Bears are getting some wins. They're one game out of the playoff race, and they also are probably going to have the number 1 pick. I mean, that is crazy. Justin Fields is trying to say, hey, hold the phone. You might not be picking Caleb Williams or Drake May in April. You might have your quarterback right here. Is that going to be the case? We'll have to find out by the end of the season, but I'll tell you, they are playing really, really well over the last few weeks. And now the Browns are also keeping that strong defense they've had all season, but Joe Flacco is somehow back. In 2023, was that 11 years after the season when he brought the Ravens to the Super Bowl? You've got this going on. This is unbelievable. I mean, how is he playing at this level? I don't know, but he's playing really, really well. And now I will say the Browns are dealing with a lot of injuries. Now they've had 3 tackles go down for season-ending injuries. They have some more injuries on defense this week. I think it was Grant Delpit and other members of that defense. He had Okoronkwo as well. They are dealing with some injuries, but at home, I'm going to put some trust here. This, I will say, is probably the game that I didn't pick the upset, that I could see it happening. I just don't think the Bears will win that many in a row right now, but if they do, this is about to get interesting in this playoff race. So I'll take the Browns. So does Braden, but that would be my cautious one where I could see an upset happening in that one. I'm just not quite pulling the trigger on that pick. Now, this is the one where I am going to take it. The Texans and the Titans. Titans have been playing really, really well. Will Levis made that comeback last week against the Dolphins. Unbelievable. They have, Derrick Henry going. The Texans are on the opposite direction. They, of course, have a rough kind of injury spell right now with Stroud getting hurt and Nico Collins as well getting banged up a little bit, but I think he's going to be back. The status of Stroud is unsure at this moment, and that is playing a huge part on what could happen in this game. But either way, I'm going to take the upset here and take the Texans. No matter what, I'm not going to say like if Stroud doesn't play, I'm going to, take the other. I'm taking the Texans here. 3-point underdogs. Braden's taking the Titans, so this will be an interesting game to match up against. But I'm going to take the Texans and say they get a bounce back, especially if Stroud is in there. I think he'll have a solid week. Of course, if he's not, they have Davis Mills, who's all right, and I think he can still lead the charge. Titans, though, trying to fight back in to that potentially all right kind of tier of teams. They've been playing pretty well lately, so that one could go either way. Chiefs, Patriots, we're both taking the favorite here, the team who has had some rough spells. Of course, we have the controversy of the plays, in the last while of was Tony offsides. I know it was a huge conversation on social media, but that is what happened, and so you have to live with what the results were. The Chiefs have been kind of trending downhill as of late, but I think although the Patriots pull off that win against the Steelers, I didn't get a sense of they're really trending in the right direction from that. So I think the Chiefs can take care of business here. This is a prime opportunity for them to bounce back. Braden's got the Chiefs as well. I think that's just a smart pick in this situation, as I think I need to see more from the Patriots, even though they do pick up that win last week. Giants, Saints. The Giants are moving with Tommy DeVito. But the Saints also put up a good performance last week. They've been up and down this season, but I think this is a shot for them to maybe take back control of the South again. If they can win and some other things go their right way, I think you could see the Saints at the top of the division by the end of the week firmly. And so I'm going to take the Saints in this one. I think that they have they've been inconsistent, but they have more firepower. Still, it's a great story with Tommy DeVito, and he's getting there so far. I'm rooting for him the whole way. Unfortunately, I think that the tracks might get stopped. The train might stop this week, but he can bounce back again. I think he'll still put up a good performance, but I expect maybe a 24-17 type of game here. I think a touchdown sounds about right. Which is what Vegas has, 6 points. I'd be hesitant to bet on that for sure. I just don't know about the spread being that high. I'm shocked at, especially with how popular DeVito's been over the last few weeks and how I would think the public would. And maybe that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get everyone to root for the Giants and take that. That's probably what Vegas is doing. So I'm going to take the Saints to win the game, so does Braden. So that one is probably going to be a pretty close game, I'd imagine. Jets, Dolphins. Of course, the madness that was the Black Friday game with these two teams. I mean, you had you had Tim Boyle's first start. I believe that was that week, and Jets couldn't do anything. Now they throw Wilson back in there, and last week he's slinging it around. I mean, that is what you love to see. Kind of was like, wow, you benched him for who else you had on this team? That was shocking. But the Dolphins, although I feel like, they've said when they don't play 500 teams, they're not doing as good. The Jets are not 500, but the Jets can be sneaky. I just can't pick the Jets right now until I see one more week of Zach Wilson like that. But I'll tell you, if he's playing the way he did against the Texans last week, better watch out. Jets might be a sneaky team these last few weeks. But for now, I'm going to take the Dolphins. I just think they're a better overall team. So does Braden. He's going to take them as well. But all dependent on how Zach Wilson decides to show up in that game. Bucks, Packers. This one I think is going to be exciting because these are two teams that are on that outside window of the playoffs. The Bucks have a good shot of still winning their division. They get that nice win against the Falcons last week. The Packers slipped that game against New York, which was a shocker. I thought the Packers were playing like, once again, I was talking with the Broncos earlier about playing like a top 6 team in the last month. I'd say the Packers were playing like a top 10 team over the last month, and they were really trending the right direction, but kind of a stumble in their schedule losing to the Giants there. And now the Bucks have not quite been that consistent team. It's why they're not in the clear lead in the NFC South, but Baker can always just have that gutsy mentality and bring them to some surprising wins. I'm expecting a bounce back from Jordan Love, though, here. I think that they will take care of business at home is really the deciding factor here. So I'll take the Packers in a close game. So does Braden. But this should be an exciting one for sure. Two teams that have a lot to play for, which will raise the stakes quite a bit in that matchup. Cardinals and Niners, I just have to probably lean the direction of the favorite here. I think that the Cardinals have shown some capabilities. Last time they went out on the field, they had that win against the Steelers, but I just need to see them perform against a top team like this. The Niners are playing like the best team in football right now, and I don't think that's a controversial statement. Anything can happen any given Sunday, but for now, I'm going to need to go with the favorite here, the Niners. I will take them. So does Braden. The Cardinals are sneaky with Kyler back in there, but I think they're going to be more. Now, this is ultimate trap game here. They're at home. Could be sneaky, but I just think the Niners are a lot better team at the moment. Although in the future matchups, I have picked the Cardinals quite a bit since Kyler came back, so they could still kind of shake things up by the end of the year. Washington and Los Angeles Rams. So here we go. The Commanders coming off the bye. You're really just at this point, you need to determine by the end of the season, is Sam Howell your guy? Because we've seen, there's pros and cons. He's a gunslinger, and that's going to get you some yards. That's going to get you moving. Also going to have some pretty bad turnovers, but you're still moving the ball sometimes. I think they need to just see what they can get over the last few weeks and really determine if he's their guy. For the Rams, you had that stumble last week, but they kept it close, about as close as you can get with a, walk-off punt return touchdown. That's pretty crazy from the Ravens. And they played the Ravens, who are a top 3 team to me. And so the Rams I have to go with here. They just are riding a lot of momentum. I still think they'll squeak into the playoffs, and I think they could be dangerous, potentially, because they have a quarterback who just a few years ago was in a situation in the playoffs and led them all the way to a Super Bowl, and they still have the weapons that they need, and that really succeed with both Kupp and Nakua there now. So I'm going to go with the Rams. So does Braden in that one. They're just riding a lot more momentum. Now, this one was shocked to see that the Cowboys are not favored. I thought this was going to be an upset pick, the direction I'm looking at, and Braden's thinking the same thing. The Bills are sneakily climbing back in there. I mean, we looked at their schedule a few weeks ago after the heartbreaking loss to the Eagles, and it's like, oh man, they got a gauntlet. They got the Chiefs. They got the Cowboys. Like, how are they going to get through this? They pull off a win against the Chiefs, which easily puts them right back in the mix. And if they can somehow pull off this one, they're really looking like they could make the playoffs. And I tell you, if they make it, they could be a dangerous team in January. The Cowboys are, right now, I have them ranked as a top 3 team. I mean, they are playing well. They beat the Eagles pretty handily last week. And so that shows that they are putting up a good performance. But this Buffalo team, I think, has some momentum. And Josh Allen has got them going. I think they're going to ride that momentum. And I'm going to take the Bills, who, as stated, I'm surprised they're the favorites by about 1.5 or 2. But so does Braden. Braden's thinking the same thing. We're both going to take the Bills in what feels like it should have been an upset. It's a favorite pick there. So even though the Cowboys I have ranked as a really high team, the Bills at home and riding this momentum, I'll take Buffalo in that one. And 2 more games, the prime times to close it out here. We have the Ravens and the Jaguars. Now, Trevor Lawrence was healthy last week for the Jaguars, but of course, things didn't quite go the way they hoped. But I think with some extra health, he can maybe make it a close game. But right now, Lamar and the Ravens are playing, as I stated earlier, like a top 3 team. I think that they are putting up a really solid performance this season. Right now, they might be the favorite in the AFC. And so I don't think that this will be as close as what they predict. I'm expecting more of a 7 or maybe a 10-point game here. So I will take the Ravens in this one as the favorite. So does Braden. We both have the favorites, which are the Ravens there. I think they're just playing really, really well. And the Jaguars are always consistent. Like, they have a decent roster, but they just don't have that X factor right now to me. They're just kind of there. And so they need a little bit more spark before I start thinking they can beat these top tier teams. And to close out the video, we have the Eagles and the Seahawks. Here it is. We have the Eagles who lose last week. They take a tumble. But then we have the Seahawks who have been on maybe one of the biggest tumbles of all the teams in the league. They have not been winning as of late. And I just think that's about where they're going to be, is that 500 range. Maybe they can still squeak in the playoffs, but the way things are going, I don't know if they're going to make it. And I just don't, as I just talked about with the Jaguars, I don't know if I see that X factor with the Seahawks right now. And so the Eagles, although they slip, and we knew they were eventually going to, as they hadn't really been pulling out of games, like winning convincingly, that eventually when they play a solid team, it might sneak up on them. But I still think that roster-wise, they're maybe one of the best teams in the league. So I'm going to go with the Eagles still in this matchup. So does Braden. So we had a stretch there where we're both taking the favorites, but we had a couple games that we disagreed with in this episode. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching this episode. We're back in the traditional studio. We have a little festive feel for a couple weeks, and then it's going to be almost towards the end of the season by then. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.